Hey everybody, we will get started here in a minute as we get more people in here. Welcome, Chris. There's always some kind of little Twitter bug here. I'll be hosting from this main account. In another second for more people to come on in. Chris, I don't know if you are with us. It does not show you as a speaker here. Okay, Moonbase, I think we have you on here.
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's always some Twitter issue.
Thanks, Elon. Great job.
Every time. All right, cool. I think we can go ahead and get started with our updates for the week. So we got a few quick ones here. There is a simple listing dialog. You can easily list at floor price for the best trait. Also, Stargaze named renewal is live. Renewals are free if there are no active bids on the name. You should have a notification for a renewal. Click a little bell icon. There's also a new Stargaze banner in Kepler Wallet featuring a slot, a bad kid, and a mad scientist. And the Astra website is now live. Visit it at astra.zone. And with that, I'd like to introduce our new featured project for the week, Moonbase, by Chris Mullins. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. I'm happy to talk about this. I'm going to tell you right now, I am absurdly nervous. If I were a Greek demigod, I'd be a demigod of anxiety and unintentional body harm. So please go easy on me. I will try to be comprehensive and do my best for you folks.
And that's all we ask, and that's all you do. So yeah, let's take it. So I guess tell us a little bit about yourself for people who are not familiar with you. Let's start from birth.
From birth, wow. So I was a big baby. Still am a big baby, but let's go with. Can we go with the abridged version?
Yeah, for sure. We can speed it up real quick.
Sure. Let's get to about 3 years ago. So I'm a graphic designer by trade, or by occupation. I've been doing this probably consistently, full time for like about 16 years. Before that, I was doing a lot of freelance. Kind of a combination of graphic design and illustration. I went to school for illustration, and life happens, and I transitioned to graphic design. Like it felt, I understood it. Like the process is the same, the goal is the same, how visuals work is the same, and I really just kind of went full steam ahead with that. And I kind of I hadn't drawn a whole heck of a lot. My drawing muscles like atrophied considerably, and this whole thing it started as a COVID project. So like working from home, I lost a round trip every day. It was like a 2 to 3 hour commute, and like I needed something to fill that. And just to give you some like idea of what that is time wise, like let's just pretend it's 2.5. So we'll go with the average. That's 650 hours a year. That's 4.25 40 hour work week. So just over 4 months and a week of my life every year was commuting, which is a substantial amount of time, to be, sitting in traffic to get to a train station and hoping the train wasn't late and taking the train, getting out of the station, walking to the office. But that was gone. And, lockdown happened, and I had quite a bit of time, and I was spending, a lot more time with my wife and kids, and that was phenomenal, because I lost a lot of that. But I also kind of fell into the trap of, what am I going to do? What's on Netflix? What's on TV? And I was really, not excited about that habit. And because my, drawing skills had atrophied, I wanted to get back into it. And I had an idea for a project that I started working on, and realized pretty quickly that like I needed to kind of get back up to speed. So, I've done the occasional like beer label or t-shirt design for friends, but like nothing really for me. And I didn't feel like I was ready to put out the type of work that I wanted to. So MoonbaseDracula really it got me drawing again, which was huge. It got me coloring again, which I forgot I needed to know how to do. Got me into a flow, and it's pretty much an introduction to what I'm interested in, which is, goofy horror, goofy sci-fi, goofy fantasy. And not to demean the project, because I'm absurdly proud of like where it is and what I put into it. But drawing isn't like riding a bike. And this was kind of, kind of a rough draft for process for me to kind of get ready to do that project that I initially started. So, MoonbaseDracula, like in a way, is kind of like a very, very refined and finalized proto project. And I know that's like word salad. So, but I think it's understandable.
Yeah. Could you maybe define a little bit what a proto project is in your terms?
Yeah, sure. I set out to do project A. I started working on project B just as a ramp up. And then I just kept pushing project B to a final stage. So like initially it started out as me sketching. Like I was just preparing myself and like getting used to how to hold, a stylus on a 20-year-old Wacom tablet, and how to deal with the hand-eye coordination of not looking at the pencil and looking at the screen. And there was just a lot of relearning that I had to do to like get to this point. And I just couldn't stop. Like I'm 100% like a workaholic anyway. So like once I start something, I just can't stop. And, I initially wanted to do, I'll do 125 traits. That'll be enough. And like, I'm pushing 700 in the final project. And some of that is, that is text. So it's not drawing, but, there is decision work that goes into that. And there's decision work that goes into like the little cutesy jokes in the bottom corner. But it was a lot of work and a lot of rework. And, part of that too is because it was a 3-year process, like the stuff that I did in the beginning and the stuff that I did in the end was, night and day. It was remarkably different. So once I had the bulk of the assets done, like 90% of the assets, I went back and I said, okay, well, I have to average these out. So I maybe took about 10% of the collection and kind of brought down the visual appeal. And then I took about 40% of the collection and then redid it. So I redid a lot. And, it was quite a bit of work.
Yeah, so that's like the refining process you were talking about. So the stuff that you did at the kind of like beginning of the project wasn't really at muster. You learned a little bit more about like how to like the process you wanted and the ultimate outcome you wanted.
Yeah, I mean bird's eye view. I never forgot how to draw, but my body definitely forgot how to draw. And kind of connecting those things again was it was difficult, and it was definitely frustrating, to say the least. But I feel like I'm at a point now where like I'm at a comfortable pace to continue improving. So like when I start, looking at the next projects that are in these Excel sheets on my desktop, like I'm comfortable with knowing how long they're going to take, and really kind of bringing them all together under a cohesive, I don't want to call it a brand, but everything I want is everything that I want to do is going to be attainable, and I'm excited about that.
So it sounds like this is like the first part to something that you're thinking of in a larger scale.
Yeah. So the one of the problems that I run into, and I'm pretty sure a lot of artists kind of run into this, it's like the curse of the creative. So like every time I'm doing a project, there's inevitably, 10, 15 other projects that pop up, and they really want to take priority. Like they just kind of try to edge their way in and become what you're working on. And that's hard to look away from, because there's only X amount of time you have, and there's a lot of work as a creative that you want to get through. And I have, probably 7 to 10 at any given time ideas for projects that are going to be under MoonbaseDracula. And that rotates because I look at things, or I think about things and I say, no one's done this. Why hasn't anybody done this? Someone should do this. I'm just going to do it. And I like that. Like I like things that aren't, they're taking the technology, because, this space is built on technology, and use it in a different way. Like this is not an NFT project. It's a generative art project. There are certainly elements that can be used as the PFP project. But as a whole, there are projects that I want to do that are like a cohesive sort of, this is the next step of MoonbaseDracula. This is the next step of MoonbaseDracula. And as long as nobody else gets those ideas before I do, and somebody certainly could, they're going to be the next steps for me.
Would you like to talk about next steps, or we could get to that a little bit later?
I mean, I don't want to talk about future projects. That's the ask.
No, just in general, what you're thinking about how the project could evolve.
Yeah. So right now, one of the things that I did with this is I came from almost a sense of pride. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this all by myself, and it's gonna be the one thing I do, and it's gonna be great. And early August, I realized that was just not gonna happen. There was a lot that I needed to do, and a lot that I needed to figure out. Some of that was how to use hash lips, and some of it was like how to get like Stargaze like going. And just let me take a second for that. Like the Stargaze team for me has been incredible. Like they are part of my team as far as I'm concerned. You know, Stardy, Sirkin, Brady, like Osmo, like just reaching out and being like kind and aware and helpful has been phenomenal. But let me step back a second. There was a lot that I didn't know. And one of the things that I wanted to do was create, high quality, large scale, like ready to print images. So these are enormous. If you actually look at the metadata, if you actually look at the on-chain image, like they're pretty big. The DPI is a little on the lower side just because of the limitations of hash lips, or at least the limitations that I ran into with my limited understanding. But if you were to shrink those down to more appropriate sizing, like those are going to tighten up a lot. And that was my expectation for the use of the project and kind of next steps. I'm assuming people will print them. They don't necessarily have to, but that was what I thought would happen.
Can we also talk a little bit about the design of the NFTs, of the project themselves? They're in the form of like a book cover, right?
Yeah. So I've always been a comic book guy. Was a comic book kid. I'm a comic book adult. And something that I found early on is like, if you were reading like anything from the big two, like Marvel and DC, like you'd have to read like 1,000 comics to understand what was going on. It's like you're reading a Marvel comic. It's like, oh, what's Juggernaut talking about? See New Mutants from August of 3 years ago. And there was work involved with that. And eventually I found like the dime and 25-cent bins of like just beat to shit comic books, like musty, like textured, old comics. And a lot of those were EC horror comics, and they were cheap. They had a really nice feel. Like I love the feel of things. I love the texture. I'm a big texture guy, and you could get those stories out in a comic book. Like you weren't dependent on anything else. I'd pick up a couple books, I read them, and I know them and I love them. So part of that too is just me being a fan of that medium. And I reached out to the EC licensing department a couple years ago, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys mind if I do this? Like, am I breaking any rules?" And the guy that got back to me was actually the grandson of the great grandson of the guy who started EC. And he's like, "No, you're fine. Like the trade dress is like totally cool. Just don't use our names, don't use our characters." And I was like, "Awesome," because at that point I was like, a year and a half into the project, and if I didn't get the approval, there would be a smidge of rework. But yeah, it's an homage. Like, I love that stuff. I respect that stuff. I want to draw attention to it because it's, it was a big part of my childhood and still is a big part of my, adulthood.
So when you're coming up with these characters, are you coming up with a backstory for them, kind of like you would in a comic book for the narrative?
Not really. So there are some things that in my head canon, and I guess it's just my canon because I'm the one coming up with them. They're like, there are connections that are made, but for all the designs, it's just, what did I sketch? What did I sketch today? How can I make it work? A couple of years ago, I cleaned out, finally all my art supplies from my parents' basement, and I found all of these old sketchbooks and just all this stuff that I forgot I had, and all the character designs were insane. Like, when you're a kid, you draw a lot of like chainsaw hands and buzzsaw hands, and none of those poor bastards are going to play the piano, but they seem to spill all over the sketchbooks. And I wanted to go back and kind of feel that again, like feel like I was just putting out things that didn't exist and kind of compiling them. So even when the characters, were generated, and I would see different things connect, I was like, oh, I didn't think of that. Oh, that's cool. I wonder what that person's like. I wonder what they would do. So there's there's a story aspect that, the owners or anybody can really just imply, but there's no existing intent with the different traits.
Okay, yeah, it's all based solely on the art, right? Like on your imagination of what these characters could be.
Yeah, I mean,
What
it's an art project.
what about the titles and the text behind?
It was like, what words did I like? What words could work? And a lot of those too, like, I licensed the fonts, because I'm, not a rule breaker. Like, I bought a lot of fonts, and then I tried to come up with batches of words that felt like they would fit into like the universe of horror comics. So it's like him and horrors and cabin, wolfmen and ray guns, and when you compile those, they can kind of make sense in their own weird way, but they still work. So, I mean, there are things that, I had seen or I'd have to make sure that were incompatible because they were existing comics. Like, there was Marvel did one. I don't know what it was. It was something of mutants, and I had to make sure that one didn't come up. Like, there's a lot of back end work to make sure that things were, button tight.
Yeah, gosh, I know the art is really great. I was having a look right now, and the mint is already up to 11%, and it just started 22 minutes ago.
Dang.
Yeah, so congratulations so far.
Thank you.
How did you decide to mint this project on Stargaze? What was the process of that?
So I think we all know him as Cortland, but he and I were friends in college, and like everybody in college who's worth hanging out with or knowing, like, you still follow him on social media, and everybody kind of moves away and does their own thing. But like, I had been following him for a while, just connecting. And at the same time, I was working on a project on ETH called Fatties with this artist, Sandy Hong, who is just fucking incredible. She's phenomenal. But that project finished. I had one of those. Cortland posted something on his Instagram, and I was like, oh, that looks really cool. Like, and then we started talking about NFTs, and like, I sent him a Fatties, he sent me a Bad Kid, and like, then I kind of got slowly, kind of sucked in, and I had my eyes on the ecosystem, and there's a lot of things that are happening here that to me feel very like, fine art isn't the right word, but they feel like outliers to like NFTs as a whole. And when I looked at all those different marketplaces and what was being offered at Stargaze, like, Stargaze kind of started to feel like the secret club inside the secret club. Like, this stuff is still kind of niche, but Stargaze itself seemed to have not a single niche product, but there were things that were being put out that were unlike mainstream products, and that was something that I really kind of focused on. So I think the answer is peer pressure. But yeah, it was great. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy I minted here. Everybody has been phenomenal.
Yeah, no, thank you for also choosing Stargaze to mint on it. It's always great to have awesome art like this minting on a Thursday and Friday. You talked about the pieces being able to mint the very high resolution. Have you printed them yourself yet?
I don't own a printer. I just go to the library when I have to print anything. But the export size in, like, when I open it up in like Photoshop and take a look, it's something like 60 inches wide by 80 something inches tall. So there's definitely quality to be seen when that is at a smaller scale.
Okay, great. I'd like to open the floor up for any questions or comments from the community for Moonbase and Chris here. You can also leave a question or a comment in the thread here, and we'll get you guys answered. What was the most challenging thing about getting this project up?
Anything that wasn't drawing, really. Hashlips is a great program. It's a free program. But a lot of these things too, if you understand these and you are, writing a tutorial or talking about how to go through this process, I don't think you know how to speak to it in a level where someone doesn't understand. Like, you kind of have to not dumb it down, but you have to speak to like the largest possible average audience. So there was a lot of questions that I had to ask. What does this mean? What does this mean? You're telling me to do this and I have no idea. And it was just rabbit hole after rabbit hole. So although I wanted to do this myself, I think having people that can support you and assist you are invaluable, because there's a lot that I just didn't get and still don't get.
Yeah, the technical side can be a bit of a challenge for creators, but yeah, we do have Stargaze Studio, and again, this is a great chance to call out Stardy, Brady, and Sirkin, who help all of the creators launch. We wouldn't be having this conversation without them. So thank you.
They're all great. I do want to say that, even before I was close to this period, like Brady was kind of pinging me and saying, "Oh, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about this?" And like, he planted a lot of seeds that I wasn't even looking for. So, in that chat that we had in the Discord, like, I kept saying, "Guys, I appreciate this." And I legitimately couldn't have done this without those folks. But like, I think he specifically has done a lot, and I don't think I can underscore like how awesome he's been.
Yeah, he's great with all of the creators, and thank you very much again, Brady. Do you have any advice for creators who would want to be launching their first project?
So maybe. I think my process and timeline has been extremely atypical, considered how fast some projects get built and launched. I have a very different focus. I have a very different workflow. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm a bit of a control freak. But if you discard all that, like, I think it's just making sure that you're, following up and keeping notes. I mean, my spreadsheets have spreadsheets, and if I didn't, like, things would fall apart pretty quickly. I think it's better to get familiar with the tools sooner than later. For me, it was just, I'll do that later. And like, I'd sit in spaces for hash lips, and I'd sit in different like creator spaces and listen to people talk the products. And I'm like, oh yeah, it sounds easy. It sounds great. I'll do that later. That's a problem for future Chris. And like, it was a big problem for future Chris. So familiarize yourself with those tools as soon as possible, because anybody doing this probably has the art down and the art development process down. But I'd assume most of us have challenges with the back end tech side.
Yeah. We have Sahil. Welcome. You have a question or comment for us? Hello, Sahil. Are you there?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Sure can.
All right. So my question was, why'd you end up choosing 10,000 as like the mint number? Were you ever looking at kind of less or more, or kind of how did you go about making that decision?
So the project that I started thinking about was going to be, and probably the next project is going to be a little bit more PFP friendly, although I wouldn't necessarily call it a PFP. But because of that, because I wasn't able to create content where you could generate faces or heads, I felt like I had to overcompensate with the amount of layers to be able to provide, unique images. And when I had all of the layers, like, I felt like I owed it to myself to make sure that they all got out there in as many configurations as possible. If I had fewer layers, I probably would have had a smaller collection, but there wouldn't have been as much variety. And, I wanted variety.
Awesome. Thanks.
Another question we kind of get asked often is how did you decide on pricing? Like, how did you get to, the mint price and collection size?
So I'm totally fine with being transparent about this. So regardless of how long and how many hours I put into work and rework, because there was a lot of rework, I didn't really push that toward the final price. And I know a lot of artists do. I looked at all of the different traits in every trait group, and I said, what is my average? So I started timing myself, how long it would take me to do this arm or this arm, and I kind of came to an average. If I had to redo that trait, I didn't consider that to the overall time period. I just kind of set that aside. I chalked that up to the cost of doing business. I didn't include it. I took all that, took the time, figured out how long it took me based on 40-hour weeks. So this is essentially 11 months worth of work. I took that and I figured I took my average, my typical freelance rate, divided it by the traits, and then I decreased it. So if I were to go solely by my average rate as a freelancer, these would be substantially higher. This isn't Genesis collection for me. It's my first step into Stargaze, somewhat of a bear market, obviously. So I didn't think it was appropriate to price in a manner that I would price in a freelance world. So it's a bit of a discount based on how I typically create work.
Thank you for the explanation. Yeah, I know it's always tough pricing art, and it's definitely something that every creator has a challenge with.
Yeah, I mean it's very like I've done graphic design. I do a marginal amount of like marketing from time to time, and anything outside of the space feels really comfortable to me. And this, ebbs and flows and fluctuates so much that it's difficult because the rules feel like they're often changing. So you just kind of have to take your best stab at what you think is acceptable.
Do you have any favorite characters or traits that you may identify with or you're particularly proud of?
Yeah. So one of the first ones that I did was one of the side characters. It's this Cyclops that says no depth perception. It's the title under it, which if you're a Cyclops, you have no depth perception. I have no depth perception. I have some pretty significant visual impairments. So like I draw a lot of Cyclopses. So that was my go-to. There's a lot of characters here where there's one eye prominent, and I'm certain that is just, my subconscious taking over, but that one I go to a lot.
Yeah, this collection is really like just in time for Halloween.
I know.
The perfect time to watch it.
I was early on, I mean, I kept saying over and over, I'm almost done. And then like I would talk to my wife and be like, I got an idea for like 15 more traits. And she's like, are you fucking serious? Like, can you just finish? And then like, a couple weeks later, I got an idea for more traits. And like, I just work them in and keep building it. But had I not done that, this would have been done a while ago. But, it is most certainly seasonally appropriate. No doubt in my mind.
Are you a big fan of Halloween?
It's my favorite holiday. My wife is into Christmas. I love Halloween. I love it. It's probably because I love the movies, and I don't necessarily hold off until Halloween to, watch a scary movie, but, horror, sci-fi. I like things that are a little more absurd. Like the world itself is a crazy place. Like I want fake horrors. I want things that I can kind of forget about and enjoy, and just see different, people's different takes on, what scares them. Because anybody making a horror movie is making it because they think it will be scary. So there's some element of this is frightening to me, and I think that's something to keep in mind when you're watching any kind of scary movie.
I don't suppose you have a Halloween costume picked out.
No, I can't. I don't have time for that, man. I'm a workaholic. I can't live without my workahol. So I don't have anything yet, but I don't think my kids have costumes yet, but I'm sure we'll get some good ones.
You mentioned horror had an influence. Do you have any other favorite horror movies, or like what other comic books did you read growing up?
So it's kind of crazy. I did read a few of the Marvels. I got into X-Force for a while, and I kind of fell out of love with Rob Liefeld. And there's a Mike Mignola did in one of the early runs of that series. And it's funny because like at the time, like I was like, what is this guy? Like I couldn't stand his work. And like now I have like, a signed Mignola print I'm looking at right now at my desk. So it's funny how that stuff happens. But as far as like influences, and I'm gonna, almost sound like an ass because I'm only gonna list guys because that's just who I was, exposed to. But Jim Henson, Guillermo del Toro, Stan Winston, like those guys were like the holy trinity to me of content. So they were a big influence on what I was exposed to and what I kind of gravitated towards. I don't necessarily always like their work. Although like if you haven't seen Kronos, you should see Kronos. It's pretty badass. And but as far as like, top movies for me, I love Alien and I love The Thing, the John Carpenter Thing.
Yeah, those are great films for sure. I want to go ahead and put another call out for any questions or comments from the community. Please request to speak, and we'll get you guys up here. Let's see here. Oh, Sahil, you have another one? Go for it.
Yeah. Hey, do you got any future plans for any future projects or anything that you're working on?
Yeah, I do. I have a direction. I'm not a big fan of the word plan because to me it's very rigid. I do like direction because it feels more fluid and reactive. And that direction is to have a series of installments that work cohesively under MoonbaseDracula as an umbrella. So the next project, and I told my family I'd take a week off. My next project is in a spreadsheet. There are some things that I need to revisit just based on what I know now about how like the tech side of things works. And some of that is to, fix process. Some of that is to kind of adjust process to make things a little bit more dynamic. But I would say I have, about 10 ideas. I have 5 ideas that I'd say right now are pretty fleshed out. And I have 2 that I could make into projects right now, but one of them is the priority. I am struggling a bit with that because I'm not going to be able to, kick out a project in a couple weeks. I take my time. I value process. I value craftsmanship. And, I know that's different. It's very different from what some people are used to, but for me to have a project that I can stand behind, it's going to take me a bit. But yeah, I've got a couple things, and they will feel like spiritual successors to the first MoonbaseDracula.
Thank you. You mentioned you're a workaholic, right? So like, at what point does like the work, like you're exceeding your capacity? Like, do you have a limit, or when do you decide you need to take a break or need to take some time away from a project and like revisit it maybe in like a month or 2?
So I am incapable of relaxation. If I'm not doing something, I'm looking for something to do. So it's really hard for me to just kind of like sit back and put my feet up because as I said, like the curse of the creative, I have all of these ideas. If I'm not working on them, there's a high probability that somebody else is. So I need to get these ideas out into the world. But it's not just like my, the illustration side of things. Like I work in an engineering industry, and those folks do a lot of great work, and I want to make sure that their work is successful. So there's never there's never a minute that goes by that I'm not thinking about how to do something better or how to improve something, which, can sound exhausting. But it really isn't, because it's the only way I've ever really known how to operate.
That's interesting. So do you think working in like the engineering like industry or field kind of gives you more of like a will to have something more perfect because that can't go wrong?
Well, it's night and day, really. Like with any kind of engineering, like there's the aspect of precision and accuracy, and everything I do, like under, as a graphic designer in that industry, is precise and accurate and has a very specific feel. Like it has to feel like the work that it's representing. But for MoonbaseDracula, like, I said when I like comics, like I like texture. Like, so this feels kind of like another side of that coin. Like I can be a little messy. Like my lines don't have to be 100% perfect. So it lets me, it lets me play a little bit more and in a different way.
Have you shown this project off to your colleagues?
Some friends have. I actually did a presentation on the project years ago about, like we had a day back in the office, and I was like, I'm working on this. And it was just, our work does something where everybody does a presentation, and it's to get people like geared up for public speaking and kind of like ready to speak in front of an audience. But, you give someone something that they're comfortable with and they understand, and they can get into that mode. So I was like, I'll do it. Yeah, whatever. Let me talk about these drawings. And I talked to them about it a little bit. But they didn't really see it. Like there really was only like Cortland saw it, like a few friends from work saw it, a few friends from home saw it, the team that I worked on, Fatty saw it. But it was, I tried to be pretty tight-lipped about it. And part of that was from the experience of Fatty's, and like that, like we had a phenomenal team, and like we kicked ass, and like working in a team environment is great because like everyone's doing their own thing. No one's getting bogged down. Things are being like pushed from person to person. Like it's a different beast than like being a one person shop essentially. But we did a lot of marketing, and I don't know if like we showed too much or showed too little. So I was like, well, I'm not sure if that was the thing. Like I haven't done enough projects to really extrapolate if that was a net positive or a net negative, but I wanted to do this a little bit more stealth. So I kept it mostly hush hush until, a couple months ago. Like I banked the Twitter account years ago, and I filled it with process work. And then I realized that I wanted to do a self project. I didn't want people to see any of this stuff. So I like dumped like 2 years worth of tweets and then started fresh, because there's still stuff in like the Instagram. Like if you go to my personal Instagram, you can see some of the stuff. But it's still like bits and pieces. Like nothing really shows the final product, because I still wanted it to be somewhat of a surprise.
I would love to see some of the process stuff. Personally, do you have plans to maybe post some of that now that the project is live?
Yeah, I definitely could. I'd probably post it from my personal, like part of the, the art is the project, but the Twitter handle also kind of serves as part of the project. So how I'm using that is kind of like this, faceless void who's just barking things at the different towers of the Moonbase. So like I'll throw stuff up in my personal for sure, but
right. So the Twitter account is almost like a character, right? In this like
yeah. And it'll remain that. Like I'm assuming, people will post their mints, and I'll retweet and, kind of come at it as if I am the Moonbase and somehow tailor something to that particular image. That to me feels very on brand.
Yeah, sounds very fun. We have Rat King up here. Welcome. You have a question or comment for us?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I don't have any questions per se, but just wanted to say that I really love the art. I think it's really unique. And welcome to Stargaze family.
Yeah. Thank you. Success for me was getting this up. Like if it mints out or not, like that's cool. But like I'm at the process now where I'm showing people what I worked on, and the work is still like it's personal work. Like it's my interest. It's a representation of me, like as a person, and an introduction to what I'm doing next, which is kind of daunting, because I almost feel like I'm kind of exposing myself a little bit. Like I'm this guy who just draws monsters. Like that's what I like to do. It's kind of childish, kind of fun, but it's who I am. So, if people enjoy the work, I think that's really all I can ask for. Like if you mint it, enjoy it, awesome. If you don't mint it and enjoy it, that's cool too. Like if it's not your thing, I get it. But I'm excited people are receiving it well.
Yeah. Have you talked with the Creepy Companions folks?
No, I've heard them in different spaces. Like, because this has been like a nights and weekends thing, like, and I work from home a lot, like I listen to a lot of spaces, but I'm usually just, head down, like doing like design work. So like Twitter spaces for me have kind of been like talk radio. I've listened to them about things, but I haven't really, like I've talked to, the folks, for Bad Kids and After the Filter, because I think those are two incredible projects. And, Corlin and Steve, like they're really like, artists, if that makes sense. Like I look at the work that they've done and I couldn't do that. Like, it's so fluid and like, I don't know. I respect it a lot.
Yeah. And I believe like the Typhoon Corporation handle is almost like a character.
Yeah. Typhon.
Typhon. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, it's like a similar type of idea in terms of like the Twitter handle being a character.
Yeah, and that's definitely a different way to do it, and it adds another level of fun. It's not just one thing. It's the unintended bonus.
Yeah. So right now, this is pretty much been you. This is like only your project. As you're thinking in the future, you're thinking about bringing on another person to help out with other things, or like, kind of expanding the team? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I have thought about it. I have looked at other artists and been like, oh man, we could be the Avengers if we did a project together. You know what I mean? Like there's like, but I'm also very hesitant, because I'm very focused on what I want to deliver. And I'm sure other artists are focused on what they want to deliver. So, I'm not opposed to working with other folks. Like I just don't know in what capacity that would work. Because I have a list of things I want to get to that I don't want to derail from. And I'm sure other people have a list of stuff that they don't want to derail from. So I don't want to be pulled away from what I want to do. I don't want to pull other people. But I mean, when you have a huge list of projects that you want to get to, like it does make sense, like to bring other people on board. Like I'd love to art direct some projects. Like I'd love to just be like, yeah, do this and I'll do this. And then we'll come back and that can be both of our things. And this can be my thing, but I don't want to disrespect other artists like that. Like it like I want people to want to do the work they want to do. And if there's a common goal, I would be 100% on board. Like the next project, and I feel like I'm not even done with this one, but the next project in scope is a little bit larger. I think in traits, it's a little bit lower. And it probably is a scenario where like not just another artist, but an artist with a different style would work. It would just have to work for the direction.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like anything is possible. Just depends on who's.
Yeah, and I probably sound super pretentious right now, and I'm sorry if I do. That's not the end. I just I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. I don't want anybody to yuck my yum. Like, but if we can all just have a fun little picnic, that's cool too.
Yeah, everyone's got their own thing, and projects evolve, right? Like you could start off solo. You can grow into a team, or some people start out with a team and then do their own solo project. It's like a band. Yeah, options are there.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to look at it. Like that's probably a pretty good. Is allegory the right word?
Yeah, maybe metaphor, something like that. One of those. And
that's why I'm marketing, because I just don't know the right words to use.
Yeah. Another one put out another call for any questions or comments. We're coming up to the end of our space here. This is really one of the most exciting collections that I've seen in a while, and you are up to almost 1,200 mints so far after 53 minutes of whitelist being live.
Dang. What does that mean? Like, so there's 8,800. You said 12?
Yeah, there's about 8,800 left out of 10,000.
Wow.
And it looks like we have. Is this Archer from Goodfellas? Welcome.
Hey man, how's it going?
Let's go. Very well. Thanks for joining. Yeah. Do you have a question comment for us?
Yeah, super huge congrats, brother. Good to see you shipped, man. Good to see the stuff go live. And I'm coming into the space late, so I apologize if I'm touching on things you already spoke about. But dude, I love the comic book cover theme, man. This is I'm a huge comic nerd, so looking at those pieces roll across my screen, it kind of took me to the comic shop this morning, man. And I'm looking at like some of those old early covers, man. It's taking me to that space, and I love the art, I love the presentation, I love the way you put everything together. So just wanted to give you a huge shout out, man, for putting in some quality work. It's really great to see it come across chain. Do you have plans to do anything with the artwork in terms of maybe turning these into like readable comics at some point, or is this kind of where you wanted to let this phase lie?
I think this is the chapter. There was a time years ago where I wanted to write a comic book, and I put everything together. I got myself colored note cards. I had like this 20-page arc, and I had all these ideas, and I'm like, no one's ever done this. And then I went to the comic shop and I saw what I wanted to do, like in a comic. I had an idea where somebody would be like jumping out of a helicopter and like in flight, just like sniping people on this like, island layer. And it just like, to me, that was like action packed. And then there's this comic called Pax Americana, and they basically did that, but they did somebody like sniping a politician, like falling out of like a satellite. And I was like, oh, that's way better. And I like kind of fell out of the idea of doing comics. But like I have a billion ideas. I just have to figure out how to put them together. Part of that too, and you know, nobody owns an idea. An idea comes when it comes. And when I was showing some of these to my friends, because all of them have like little like kind of inside stories in the, you know, bottom right hand corner. Like a few of them, someone was like, "So do you watch Rick and Morty?" I was like, "No." They're like, "Well, these are from Rick and Morty," and it's just like they were so similar that I had to go back and like redo stuff. So I want to not do something that could kind of come close to anything existing. So comics, no. I mean, I'm not opposed if people kind of like do their own kind of fiction with these. I think that would be really cool to see. But you know, I'm kind of sticking to art right now.
Yeah, awesome, brother. Very cool. Yeah, the layouts that you chose are like super classic. Like if you go back and look at some of those comics from the early turn of the last century, man, it's like it's really reminiscent of that. It takes me to that place. And I know you said earlier you're fond of drawing monsters, and that definitely comes across in what you did. But I want to just you know, like acknowledge you for using the layering technology in a different way. I mean, a lot of times when we're doing PFPs or, you know, other types of artwork, the layering, you know, comes across fairly simple. But when you're doing layering with wording, it requires a lot more thought, a lot more input, I think. So I really appreciate the fact that you put a lot of energy and effort into what you put forth, man. That's really, really, really interesting to see. And I love it when people push the boundaries of some of the things that we've seen. So yeah, just really just want to just, you know, acknowledge you for doing that. And, you know, I hope to see more and more projects doing things like this. This is one of the things that we're trying to do with ourselves as well, just continue to push in different directions. And at some point in the future, I'd love to have a conversation. I think maybe given what you're saying earlier about direction, ideas, and the fact that you've got a lot on your plate, but maybe not necessarily, you know, wanting to, you know, take on a partner or take on, you know, like a commitment to do something that might pull you off course. I have a couple ideas that I might want to run past you, and maybe we can collaborate on a couple things. Because as soon as I saw your artwork, I had like 15 ideas myself, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to a conversation at all. Yeah, we can chat.
Sounds good, brother. Well, hey, man, listen, I hope the Mint continues to go well. It's great to see, you know, when good work is supported, and kudos on getting it out there, man. I know it had been a while for you, so congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Archer. We have Rob up here. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, what's up? So I just wanted to say I've known Chris since like '04, and he's one of the most genuine dudes you're ever going to meet. So if there's any doubt in your mind about how genuine Chris is, just throw it out of your head right now. He's the nicest and most genuine guy I've known for a large part of my life, and I've known him and his brother for quite a while. So before I have two statements, or a statement and a question. My statement is fix my waitlist so I can actually buy these things and mint them. And my second thing, Chris, how did you balance kind of work life? You know, you have a family of 2 kids, and this project. I personally talked to you about this project since like 2021, like the later end of 2021, we started talking about this project. So it's been almost 3 years, maybe pushing 4 years you've been working on this. In those 4 years, how did you balance having a family and a job and pushing the limits of like the layering system within NFTs?
Hey, Rob.
Hey.
It's good to hear from you, man. So not having, like, when lockdown happened, I lost a commute, you know, I think as a lot of people did. And it was, well, I'm up, I got nothing to do, I'll draw. And then I wasn't commuting home, I'm up, you know, I got nothing going on, I'll draw. So it, you know, as my kids have gotten older, like they have priorities, they have school and they have their focuses. And that kind of gave me a little bit more. I know you have like a little one, like, your son is like, you know, in need of constant care just based on age. You know, you're at the point in your life where like every, piece of fabric in your house is probably a rag to mop up some kind of liquid. But like, I'm just, you know, as my kids got older, it gave me a little bit more flexibility And having that plus all that extra time, like I just focused on it. Like I didn't watch a ton of TV. You know, my wife wanted me to finish this a million times, but I just kept going, man. I couldn't stop.
Cool. Thanks, man. Fix my wait list. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Yeah, and we have Bad Kids up here.
Chris, congrats on the mint. Nice to see that this project is finally live. So my question for you, I didn't really grow up with like EC comics, but I did see the HBO show Tales from the Crypt when I was young, and it really fucked me up. But in like a good way. I mean, I think that's part of the reason I love horror movies so much now. So I guess I would ask, did you see the Tales from the Crypt show when you were younger? And if so, what's your favorite episode?
Yes. The answer is yes. And I don't know if this one is typically Tales from the Crypt or Outer Limits had a small run for a while. There was one where there was this business. There's two. There's one with the business, and the name of the business was like something unwanted layaway society, and someone's there, and like inevitably the guy realizes that the acronym for the business is ghouls, and they're going to eat him, which is like very Troll 2, if you've seen that. It's a movie that's so bad it's good. And then there's another one where I think it was Danny DeVito, where like maybe it's not Danny DeVito, but he's like dating two twins and they saw him in half and they both take a half. There's another one where like there's this retiree and like he has this dog, and like he doesn't like the dog, it's his wife's dog, and then like he turns it into this like animatronic, and then like his wife turns him into this like does this like animatronic taxidermy thing. So I've seen a few. Like I've tried to buy them. Like I always look to see like if I can get them on like high def, because like that's the type of movie that you want to see, type of show that like you want to see like texture, and you want to see costumes. So yes, I have seen it. Just to spin that real fast, and totally go off track here. When I was like 10 or 11, I was like way too old to be watching Power Rangers, but my like younger brother was watching Power Rangers. And like, I fell absolutely head over heel in love with like the monster costumes. Like every episode had these like weird as hell costumes. And like that I got with, I jive with that. So yeah, media, horror, like that type of stuff, on board. But yeah, dude, that was one of those shows where like I'd watch it and then I get to my bed and have to run real fast and jump in my bed so nothing would grab me. You know that feeling?
Oh yeah, me too. Definitely. I wasn't supposed to be watching it, so I had to like